Hello and welcome. My name is Justin and I am going to be discussing communication and leadership. So, according to Robert Tannenbaum, leadership is the interpersonal influence that is exercised in situation and directed through the use of the communication process toward an attainment of a goal. So, the first concept that I'm going to be discussing is the concept from chapter 12, which is leadership. We're going to be comparing task oriented and relationship oriented leaderships. So, we're going to compare the effects of task oriented and relationship oriented leaderships on, firstly, the emergent states. So, emergent states are basically the traits that characterizes a team with regards to their context, inputs, processes, and outcomes. Relationship-oriented leaders actually generate greater cohesion between the members of the group. Compared to a task-oriented style of leadership, which doesn't have any significant effects on their emergent states. Next is the effects on the group processes, where they found that task oriented leaders induced greater group efficacy, a more positive and less negative affective state among the members are also found. Compared to a relationship oriented leader, there was no significant influence on the group processes. And lastly, we're going to compare the two in terms of task accomplishment. So they found that groups led by a task-oriented leader achieved higher levels of task accomplishment compared to a relationship-oriented group, where they found no significant effects on the feelings of accomplishment within the members of the group. The second concept we're going to be talking about is nonverbal communication, which is from chapter 11 of our book. According to Remland, when superiors communicate with their subordinates face to face, the unequal nature of the relationship is acted out non-verbally. This can be seen through kinesic, proxemic, and the temporal norms applied by the leader. We can relate these concepts to the use of power compared to attraction in Susan Peterson's podcast, and also the ineffective style of leaderships used first on the show Ted Lasso. So, kinesic norms are concerned about the motion, the movement, and the posture. So, it's in the way we stand, the way we talk, and the way we move. So, under kinesic norms, leaders or people in higher organization status behave in a more relaxed and inattentive manner than those of their subordinates. They're more easygoing. They also lean back. They look around the room while they appear to be listening and may posture themselves as leaning or posturing themselves asymmetrically, unequal levels of legs and arms, and talking in a relaxed tone. They also utilize unresponsive head and facial displays, reflecting a subtle lack of involvement with their subordinates. And the implicit message which is being communicated non-verbally is that my body is more important than yours. The next norm is proxemic, which talks about the spatial behavior or how we distance ourselves to the other person, especially with regards to the hierarchy in the company or the leadership roles. So, the territory or the space of a leader is generally less accessible compared to those of their subordinates. They are harder to get to, and the organizational environment is structured in a way that they are insulated from unwanted intrusions. They also use more space, which is why they own bigger cubicles or individual offices compared to everyone else. And this gives them more mobility and makes their gestures more expansive. They also use up more acoustic space, so they tend to speak louder than their coworkers that are below in the hierarchy. Also, superiors touch their subordinates in social encounters considerably more than the subordinates are allowed to touch them. Invasion of territory or personal space is also a sign of status in organizations, as it is their prerogative as a superior, but this cannot be done by the subordinate, and subordinates are less likely to stare because prolonged eye contact by a subordinate would be an act of spatial invasion. If the subordinate initiates the interaction, they will stand further apart than if the supervisor is the one who approached. They will be interacting with the use of less space. Proxemic norms in an organization enable superiors to send a message to their subordinates that my space is more important than yours. The last norm we're going to talk about is temporal, or the controlling of the time of others. So managers decide when they meet with subordinates and not the other way around. They decide the frequency of the conversation. After a meeting is arranged, temporal control is exercised through the subordinate having to be more punctual or having to arrive earlier than the supervisor. The supervisor setting the agenda for even the most casual conversations. Supervisors use more time talking about what is of interest to them than what is actually the concern of their subordinates. Supervisors also holds the floor longer, and they decide the amount of time the conversations take. As a manager might look at their watch and put a quick hand to any conversation with their subordinate. Ultimately, this satisfies the needs of the superior at the expense of their subordinates. Without any word, the message being implied by temporal norms is that my time is more valuable than yours. So part 2 of the presentation, we're going to break the old leadership norms and create better organizational cultures. Firstly, in improving nonverbal communication as a leader, we have to start utilizing active listening, provide eye contact to show interest in what your subordinates are saying, and then giving them your undivided attention. Using effective body language, we have to present a welcoming posture when speaking to our subordinates. Appropriate body positioning to allow people to feel more comfortable speaking to us and sharing their insights with us as a leader. Avoiding intimidating gestures. This is to maintain your bearing and then minimize the use of dismissive gestures. Also, in nonverbal communication, you have to learn how to manage your stress in the moment, because stress compromises our ability to communicate and in turn affecting our subordinates negatively. Also, we should improve our emotional awareness, because accurately reading or knowing what the emotions of your subordinates are can help with communication. And lastly, on utilizing employee oriented leadership as a leader, we have to utilize recognizing and rewarding. mentoring and coaching, developing an open line of communication within the organization and subordinates, identifying each of our subordinates' strengths, and allowing for autonomy and creativity on their strengths. These will build to higher job satisfaction, lower turnover, and mutual respect. And that is all for the presentation. This is the references that I've used, and thank you for watching.